Customer Acquisition, prepared for and presented at the 2017 Square One Entrepreneurship Training Program. Square One is a program of the Center for Emerging Technologies. CET is an affiliate of the Cortex Innovation Community. Square One is funded in part by the Missouri Technology Corporation.
Customer acquisition is like my space. I told Christy earlier, and it is so true, that sometimes I might not be thinking about it, but customer acquisition lives in my heart. And I always start off any conversation about customer acquisition with the first time that I got in really big trouble. You guys will know how near and dear customer acquisition is to my heart. When I was missing, about 3 years old, and my parents found me 3 or 4 blocks down the street. And I had a pocket full of nickels and a pocket full of gravel. And I was selling rocks door to door to my neighbor customers. And this just sticks with me that, all those neighbors, they could have given me a nickel just to be, oh, you're cute, go away. And I wouldn't have learned about acquiring customers. They had to actually take the rock and exchange it for money in order to be a customer. And I really do think that this is why I've been on this path my entire life. And it's not just about, taking gravel and selling it to the neighbors. Somehow, even at age 2, I knew that if you washed that rock in the gravel bowl or in the dog water bowl, you could sell it for a nickel instead of a penny. So this was not just any old gravel. This was washed gravel, and people were buying it. And the moral of that story is, I really do firmly believe, and there's a great quote from Einstein, I'm going to mess it up, that if you make something and you put it in front of the right person, they will buy it. Now, that doesn't mean that telling people that it exists makes them want to buy it. There's a lot more work in it than that. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is the process of customer acquisition. Me shouting out, hey, I've got rocks for sale, come buy rocks from me. No one's going to come buy rocks from me, right? I need to go to them. I need to go to where they are. And so that is really kind of where the whole customer acquisition journey starts. But another piece that is really important, I have the conversation all the time, is about prioritizing your resources, because customer acquisition is expensive. And most people don't plan properly for the amount of time, energy, effort, resources that it's going to take to actually acquire those customers. We've put all this time and energy into building our thing, and now people are going to buy it, right? And what we usually find out is that the customer acquisition process is a long, hard road that most people didn't expect to be as difficult as it was after all the effort they put into building their product. So the process of customer acquisition is the same for every business. No matter where you are in the world, no matter who you are, no matter what your business is, selling rocks to neighbors, or selling apps in the app store, selling business-to-business software solutions, it all goes through this process. It all starts on this side where we're trying to create traffic. This is where you are creating interest, letting people know who you are. All the things that Dale was telling you. Who are you? What do you do? What value do you bring? Because when people hear that message, if it's the right message, they're going to get interested. And they're going to start this journey through your process. I'm interested in learning more. When we get the right identity of our company in front of the right audience, that audience is going to say, yes, I'll let you tell me more. I'm going to allow you to tell me more. So what Dale was talking about was a lot of what you as a company do to control price, to control customer acquisition. This is the model of customer-controlled acquisition. This is providing an experience for your customers to control their ability to get from, I just learned about you, to, I have the value of what you've given me. So if we go along, they're interested now and they say, yes, please sell to me. They go into your sales process. We say that the sales conversion process is matching problem to solution in order to deliver value. And when you solve a customer's problem, the sale is complete. Unfortunately, most companies and early stage companies stop the sale here. They think booked revenue. I've got a signed contract, so this sale is complete. Well, salespeople will tell you that it's not complete until the customer accepts it. So if you're making business decisions based on how many people have signed the contract, you run a significant risk of how many people fail to receive what they ordered or reject it once you've delivered it to them. There's a number of things that can go wrong from the signing of contracts to receiving the good. So we say sales conversion is from the time a customer says, yes, please sell to me, to the time they have the solution to their problem. And then the last piece of this model is that when the customers receive the value that you have told them, you've told them, come to me, we have value to offer. Let me educate you on the value that you receive. You're so excited, let's deliver the value that you've bought. Now realize the value, and then you create advocates. So I know your next week's session or tomorrow's session is on key performance metrics, which is next week. So there are some really great key performance metrics throughout this whole line, and they are really important for you to be able to measure. So I'm excited for you to have that conversation. But one of the ones here that's really interesting is that statistically, 54% of leads generated by businesses are generated by salespeople, by people assigned in this group. Only 24% are generated by marketing, which leaves a significant portion of your lead generation that actually comes from your successful customer delivery. So this is really important. And a lot of early stage businesses, because we're busy, we're strapped for resources, it's taken every ounce of energy we have to get people to here, we're on to the next one. And if you're only going this far, you're only realizing less than 78% of the lead generation you could have if you carried your customer value and made sure that your customer value is supported after their purchase and after the delivery of what you've sold. So this is just the underlying engine to every car or every business, like an engine. But if you look at this paper here, I wanted to try to help you apply some of the things you've done in Business Model Canvas to this model for yourself. So we're going to rearrange some things because you might talk about it in Business Model Canvas in a different order, but we're going to talk about it here in the order that we have to create a process to acquire customers. Sorry, did I take... I think this is an extra. Thank you. So, how many of you have identified who your target market is? Okay. So, when we're looking at a business that's going to, I liked the testimony at the beginning when someone was talking about what you say to investors about going to market, and if you try to do all of those things that you tell the investor you're going to do on your fancy hockey stick model, it's really hard to operationalize, right? And so their advice, which I agree with, and the purpose of this exercise here is that when you're just starting off on the path of customer acquisition, we need to look at who is going to buy what we have available to sell today. Yeah. If we're ready to go to market, we don't want to be selling something else if we've already invested in building what we have today. So we see that a lot with tech companies. Quentin will verify that a lot of CTOs especially will build something and then they're so excited about the next thing that they're already selling the next thing and they haven't sold the first thing that they built. So we want to make sure that we know who is going to buy what we're going to market to sell. So does anybody want to be our example company for this exercise and talk to us about your business and how this applies? Okay, excellent. So who are you selling your product or service to?
I'm going to be, and Christy, can you help me out? Because I sort of have two products. I mean, I have my current business, but I'm creating this other business that's sort of a marketing for my current business.
So talk about that you're trying to...
The directory?
The directory.
Only, okay.
Okay.
So I'm creating a wellness directory.
Okay.
So it'll be efficient technology in terms of searching instead of just relying on Google or Yelp. It'll be for people who are seeking mental and physical wellness. So sort of like a referral system.
Okay.
That will have just all sorts of services between meditation, chiropractic, yoga, healthy restaurants, but all in that wellness.
This is a great example. Okay, so who is actually going to give you money?
So the account. So in a sense, I'm marketing these businesses as a whole, as like Wellness St. Louis. So
Okay.
the business would give me a monthly subscription to be on the directory.
In the directory.
In the directory.
Okay. So the people we're talking to are the businesses who are going to pay to be in the directory.
Yes.
Okay. And they are wellness related businesses. Is there any more information about them? What size are they? You said St. Louis.
It would be mostly small businesses.
Okay.
So, a lot of healers, people who aren't as focused on the marketing portion
Okay.
of the business.
And is it the owners?
It would be mostly the owner.
The owners. Okay. So the who in this scenario is the owners of small businesses in the health and wellness market in St. Louis. Those are the people that we're actually getting money from. But I loved where she was going with the people who would use the directory, because I've been called in on dozens of cases where people are selling to the problem that they're solving, which is the non-paying market. And we're not in business for that. We're in business to make money, although that's nice. Yeah, we do want to satisfy a larger need. But in this particular case, you want to know who is the buyer. So then, where are your buyers? We said St. Louis for the geography, but that I put in the who column. The where is all about if we are going to deliver a message that says, this is who we are, we want you to be interested in us. Where do we find these people? So in your particular business, well, actually anybody can jump in here, we can help her out. Where would it be a good idea to put our message about what our company is to reach the business owners in St. Louis of health and wellness companies?
Blogs about health and wellness.
Yeah.
At a trade show about health and wellness.
Yeah. What was that? Yeah? Yeah, restaurants. Yeah, so you said restaurants? Yeah. So healthy restaurants, right?
Perhaps food stores?
Yeah.
Like essential oil stores and that, health food stores?
Yeah, yeah, yep,
People that are hosting podcasts and video podcasts and radio and audio ones that are here locally that are pumping this style of life.
yep.
You have Jeff, or I know the Hot Pot people have one that they're hosting every week and I listen to it as well.
Yeah. No, I think that those are all really great ideas. So we're going to ask you a few more questions to see if we can get a couple others. Are there any other people who are getting in front of this audience who might be interested in embracing the directory and bringing the directory to, to their audience that they're already in front of? The podcasters, yes. right? All the podcasters and bloggers, they would happily promote your directory in their market.
You could put a little SE spider on their blog and see who's reading it, and then you're alerted if this user read that, and you can reach out to them.
Yeah. So are there any other partners that, yeah,
Might be people who, maybe it's too general, but maybe people who are involved in helping people relocate to St. Louis. So I think you said before, you mentioned it this time, that a lot of this is for helping people who are interested in this lifestyle that are not from St. Louis. So they don't know where this stuff is. There are people, certain professions, whether they're property managers or realtors who interact with people who are new to St. Louis because they
Yep.
help them move here.
yeah,
And then those people might be interested in and those people get to know the people who move here. If, maybe they understand, hey, if this person is interested in, that lifestyle, then, this is something I can do to show that, I'm a good realtor to them, I understand their needs. So, here's a pamphlet or here's
yeah,
Those are the secondary people that I want to market to, the hotels, the corporate wellness, the people who are looking at an easy access to, like, people who relocate here and aren't sure where to get started.
okay. And those people, are those people paying people?
Those would not be the paying people.
Okay, those would be partners for user awareness, not
Yeah,
not
and
buyer
create
awareness.
them. Mhm.
Okay, yes,
What about chambers of commerce?
yeah,
Maybe they can connect her with different businesses in the area.
absolutely. And that's one of the things the chamber's supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
Is help businesses connect. No, that's a good one. So that is a really great start to who and where for your company. I want to talk about a couple other examples of things that I've seen as big misses in the market, just so that we can all avoid those mistakes. So I knew a company that was selling digital services. They were SEO optimized, they were marketing on apps, they were doing email marketing and all of these different campaigns, and guess what? The small business owners who they were trying to reach don't know anything about digital. They're not on social media. So you can advertise to them on social media all you want to, they're not there. But because that person knew social media, and that was the way you go to market, right? I mean, everybody has Google, everyone's looking. So she was marketing the way that she was familiar, and it was not the place where her customers were. Two other things in that space. One is I had a company ask me if they should buy a billboard. This is a common question, should I get a billboard? Well, this company was an app company. And I was like, well, let's just think about this for a minute, because you could buy the billboard, but if someone sees the billboard and wants your app, what's the likelihood of they're going to pull over and go and download your app? Because you can't get the app while you're driving down the street. And so those were some scenarios where that's not necessarily a good fit. You might not remember the app. I'm not saying that it's not always a fit, but it won't be because you want someone to download an app from the App Store. It will be because you're already a big name company and you're letting people know, hey, we also have an app. In that case, a billboard might be, something that you look at. And then an interesting one that someone else told me about was that people are trying to reach their healthcare customers at community events, which is, you can talk to the community, you can let them know who you are, where you are. But when we went in to analyze where their customers were coming from, it was really clear why that strategy wasn't working. Because they are in urgent care. And if you are at a health, at an event, I don't need an x-ray right now. And when I do need an x-ray, I'm going to go to my phone and say where to get an x-ray. And I'm going to go to the nearest place on the map. I am not going to remember that I met you at the back to school fair in the community, right? So It's not to say that they don't need to participate there for different reasons, but it is not for this reason. It is not to create awareness in their buyer market, right? Because here we're spending dollars to get people to engage with us, right? So if we talk about engagement, this is an area that's an inflection point. All of these are inflection points in your process. So we've created awareness with the people where those people are. We're not, trying to bring them to us where we are. And they say, yes, I want to buy from you. What action do they take? So if we go back to our example, you found who they are, you've gotten them interested where they are. Now let's look at each of the things that were mentioned about how to engage with them. So someone mentioned health food grocery stores. So if someone sees you there and they want to buy from you, how are they going to buy from you?
So I'll have a sales process.
Yep. So where will they enter your sales process? That's where this gate is.
I will have something where it's like an action step on my website.
Okay, so they'll go to your website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all information will drive them to your website.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, that's great. I mean, capturing web leads is great. So my question to you is, if I am an active person who's running my yoga studio and I see this at the grocery store and I'm on my way and I see the website and I know I need to go there because that sounds interesting, how am I going to remember to go there, right? That's why I like the blog and the podcast idea, because you can link directly through from those. Social media is another great one. Lots of small business owners in that space are promoted by word of mouth. And so Facebook is actually a very great social media segment and inexpensive for you because they can link straight from that social media to where you're telling me your engagement is. So if you have limited resources, there's a lot of great ideas. If you have limited resources, focus on the ones that can get them to this engagement point the fastest, the most direct way, the most cost-effective way. And you need to set aside all the other options until you're making enough money to add them on. Then you can add on all of those other things. So always remember at each stage what you're trying to get them to. In this case, you're trying to get them to your website. So you want to focus on ways that are direct paths to your website first. If we go to the sales process, whoops. Does anyone have any questions about the customer engagement process before we move to sales? Yeah.
In your example, you said, well, okay, they were looking here, they were looking at social media, the customer wasn't there. Where did the customer end up being for them?
Oh, for those people? The customer ended up being at the Chamber of Commerce. The small businesses went to the Chamber of Commerce and they went to the Chamber of Commerce directory to see who was listed under marketing. It was the least digital path to... But, I really commend, it was actually my director of digital who pointed that out to me as, that is the number one place where she's gotten all of her customers. And we just signed a new one this past weekend that all of her customers find her in that space, and she's the only company listed in the Chamber of Commerce directory. For marketing, yeah.
Where in this lead generation is just your pick up the phone and make a sales call?
If that is your process, that would be here under campaigns. You have to know who to call and you have to know where they are. And then you are able to make the calls under a campaign strategy. Yeah.
Traditional sales models.
Yep. Yeah. So that's where we'd be running emails to a targeted list, cold calls to a targeted list. You could even run digital advertising to that list.
Do you believe that is a sales tactic to really try to enumerate that list and not just say, we're picking a city, we're Googling this customer type, and we're just picking up the phone and calling? Is that
So it depends. I'm going to give you a really great tool that I like for making lists. Yeah, yeah. So I'm working with a couple of clients now because one of the challenges is we can't get enough ways to contact people. And sometimes by the phone, if you miss it, you've missed your chance. You just keep dialing to the next people.
Sometimes three come back.
Yeah.
Because maybe you were successful in the next
Yeah.
three, so why would I call one minute?
Yep. So 2 ways that we're counteracting that. One is we're trying to get better at targeting who we're putting that effort into. Labor in any business is your most expensive piece. So high labor, calling all those people is going to be the most expensive as far as lead generation. It could be the most fun, yeah. And for a lot of businesses, it's the most effective. So I have a client right now that's engineers who sell to engineers. Those engineers are not out looking for solutions on the web the same way that other people are. Our best method is going to be to identify the engineers that we want to talk to and then approach them through a campaign, all the different ways that we can find them. So I'm going to give you a really cool tool that I've only recently discovered. It's called Lead Gibbon. Lead Gibbon. Exactly. I don't know why all the marketing tools have these monkey names. Yeah, SurveyMonkey, MailChimp. This one's Lead Gibbon. And you can use my 20% discount code, but it's free for the first 14 days. I tell all my people, build a huge list in the first 14 days and cut off your account. If you need to come back, you can use my discount code, which is Atomic Revenue 20. And so when you go, you install this, it links up with your Google Chrome account, and you go to LinkedIn and you do searches for the people who have the title at the companies and the geographies that you want. There's a little check mark. You literally check them off, and it pings the server of the company that they're employed with and brings back an email address. And it is really cool because it gets you the business email address where they work. So if you're in business to business sales and you're going to invest in this, handpick the right people. It gives you their phone number, their address. It gives you,
Just pulling it from the DNS.
yeah, yeah. And then it tells you green, yellow, or red. Then it tells you green, yellow, or red, their level of confidence on whether or not it's right.
What if they have this blocker? It's blind, I think. It's anonymous.
Okay, so I'm currently pulling my 4th client list because this tool is new to me and it's super exciting. But for one of our clients that we were targeting school resource officers, the police officers securing schools, we pulled 3,000 names and 800 of them came back with email addresses, which was a pretty good list for us. So we took the approach of first emailing that list to verify whether or not they were there. Out of that, over 720 of the emails were correct emails. So the ones that pulled up as no emails, we just siphoned those off the list. If someone has time at some point in their life, they can call them. But we're going to start with the ones that have easier contact information. So we emailed them, started putting them on campaigns. Then when they open emails, then we call them. So when we build those big lists, rather than calling someone who has no idea who you are, why you're calling, you're invading their day, we're having our team call after the first email when we see that they've opened it, looked at it, clicked through. We can see what page they clicked on the website, and that's true of most email platforms these days. Then we put our labor on calling because we're going to spend 1/3 the amount of labor, and that upfront piece can be pretty automated.
So I was trying to market to some people who were reading this particular Forbes article.
Yeah.
And I was able to get, as long as they were logged in through their Google, who the people were that were reading this article, and then it would kick me back their Google credentials, and then I could reach out from there. Very similar idea, and it really was.
Yeah, it is way more effective.
I couldn't believe how it worked.
Yeah.
When is it considered spam though, if you're getting these lists and if you're mass emailing them?
So technically this would be considered spam. However, it depends on how you write the email, right? And how the email approaches to them. So our emails in each of these segments is a very personalized email of, hey, you know, you work in my industry and I'm very interested in talking to you a little bit more about your business so we can collaborate. Or the school resource officer one was easy because it was a police officer owned business. We were able to say, hey, I'm also a police officer and we're launching an application that protects schools and supports police officers. If you're interested, can you give me a call? We're trying to reach more officers, right? And so that's a lot less spammy than, hey, I'm selling hot dogs. Buy some hot dogs. I'm hitting you up on email to buy my hot dogs, right? So you can still get a lot. If you get too high of a rejection, too high of spam, they'll kick you off. But really, the reality is it's not any different than calling them on the phone. Most people would prefer that you sent them an email versus invade their privacy and call them on the phone, right?
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful though, because you don't want to get kicked out of your CRM or your email tool or whatever those things are. So make sure you're classy about it. You know, don't be scammy or scary.
Easy way then to
Stocky.
You import that to your CRM? When you
Yeah,
get
we
the
import the lists to the CRM, then we can manage it. You know, and a lot of times too, we can send out a note that says, hey, we're going to be at this conference or at this trade show. There's lots of things you can talk to people about. But the big thing is that your conversion, your sales, your number of customers is largely dependent on the number of people you get to this point. If you don't get them here, you can't get them farther, right? So you have to get them to this point where they say, please sell to me, right? So this is the education process where we educate them to buy. Here's that little pricing strategy piece that Dale was telling you about, right? And so here we want to talk about when. When is your customer buying? So for you, is there a time of day, a time of year when your customer is more likely to buy your solution?
For me personally, I'm trying to get that before the end of the year. You know, get the beta done because January is prime time for people looking for those things. I mean, but there won't be a set time. I mean, it's going to build gradually.
Yep.
So, you know, as soon as people hear about me and they see that it's working and they want to take a chance, they can buy it any time. But I do think there's crucial times of the year that people are willing to spend a little bit more money and looking for on marketing.
I don't know exactly what the time of year is here, but in certain regions, people move. Most of the moves happen, especially the faraway moves happen during certain times of the year. That's another one to probably look up too, because that's when you'll have like traffic to your site.
So I find this really interesting because I'm going to bring us back, and I tend to not be cuddly, so no one get offended. But when your customer wants to buy is regardless of when the users want to go to the platform. It's regardless of when they're moving, and it's regardless of what your business goals are to acquire them. They don't care. That's not why, when I'm going to buy. So when am I most likely to buy? You mentioned something very valid, is when I have the most budget. Right? So for larger companies, that's going to be at the start of the year, right? Because you've just done your budget planning. You've got your budget freed up at the start of the year. You have more money, right? As the year goes on, you have less and less money to spend. So that's a very valid way to go after a market as far as timing of when they're going to buy. Other businesses have purchasing cycles. If you're selling to schools, make a lot of purchasing decisions in the summer, right? And then when they go back to school, the new purchases are in place and they're ready to kick off the new school year. So you really have to know your market and when they're buying. Now I will say for small business owners in the health and wellness space, a lot of those factors are not going to apply. The factors that are more likely to apply are the slow days of the week. What days of the week are slower for giving health and wellness classes? Or, you know, are Mondays a day when lots of health and wellness people have a slower day because everyone's getting back into the work week and they've done their health and wellness on the weekend? So I would try to research those types of things because your business owners are the people who are busy delivering the service. So the time of day when they're available is going to be an important thing to find. One thing that would be very easy for you in your particular market is to look on social media. Because if you have these people in your social media segment, like in Facebook, you can see what times of day are they active. Those times of day when they're active, those are good times of day to reach them. You know they're not busy in the other things that they're doing. That's not.
How do you see they're active? What do you mean by that?
So you can see the people who are in your audience, when are the times that they're engaging with conversations related to your topic. So we'll see, I have a client that was doing all of these posts at 4 o'clock. Big deal. We're going to have 4 o'clock because that is when the parents of children have got the kids home and they're going to be on social. It was 3:18. While they're sitting at the school waiting for the kids to come out and they're sitting in their car is when they're active on social, right? So we knew, push out all your messaging at 3:18, right? So you have to know when to engage them. Because if you've got the right person and you know where they are, if you approach them at the wrong time, they're not going to buy, right? So there's another statistic that 56% of people that we approach in a business-to-business sale might be interested in buying, but are not in the buying window. So 56% of the people that you spend money on up here getting to right here might not be in their buying window, which means you need to nurture them until they come into their buying window. That's all part of this education and sales process is how do you keep in touch? How do you stay in touch with all of those people so that when they're ready to buy, you have what they want to buy? So we talked about before, you mentioned that what you are selling is the directory. You'll see that I've reordered, I've thrown everything you guys have done way out of whack because I said what you are selling doesn't matter until right here. I mean, it does, right? You have to know what you're creating interest about and who you're selling it to. But your audience in a buyer-driven sales process doesn't care until you get to here, when you can tell them, educate them about this is what we're doing and this is what the value is to you. So in your case, the value is what we are selling is access to a user population. We're not selling membership in a directory. We're not selling a directory description. We're selling access to your target market, right? The directory is just what facilitates the access. I'm way behind on time here, so am I?
Keep going.
All right. Does anyone have any questions in here on sales conversion before we get into the why and the how of customer acquisition? And you guys have the worksheets. You guys can do this over and over and over again. You can do it for every product in your product line. I'll make the PDFs available. You guys can do it over and over again. So when we get to the why and the how is, now you've said what they're buying. If you deliver it, why did they buy? What are they going to receive, right? So we talked about it, that you are selling access to users, but what they are receiving, the value is not access to users, right? That's not valuable to them unless those users buy, right? So then we have to answer the question here of what percent of users on the platform are clicking through to buy from the people in our directory. You're going to have to start tracking data on that because it's going to be a number one question you get asked. But the other thing too is, why does it matter that I'm in front of more users? So there's two ways, right? They can click through the directory, or maybe, this is one of those cases where I hate it, But maybe brand awareness is something that you bury in there. Don't buy brand awareness, by the way, until you're big enough to afford it. But the people that you are selling to might be buying brand awareness. And so you making it available to them is something that might be of interest. I'm saying save your money for you. So what are some other reasons why someone is going to buy? Efficiency? Yeah. It could be the most cost-effective way to get in front of new customers, right? That's great. So I'm going to ask you for another data point for you to find out for me in the future. I'd like for you to tell me, based on the number of click-throughs that you get, what is the cost of acquiring a customer through this compared to the other ways they would get customers? If the other ways they get customers is buying advertising, then you can compare buying advertising to being in the directory. Yes.
So in her and Stacy's scenario here, where a lot of these companies she's marketing to are very small firms, maybe they're not doing a tremendous amount of marketing as it is, and they view her site as a bit the ante or table stakes to be in the space at all. So
Yeah.
she can sell that perceived value, the why to them,
Yeah.
in just only a perception aspect, because you are doing nothing else. You are also a member of this community. You are a person that's interested in health and wellness. I am the premier health and wellness. You have no choice but to plug into me. This is your only plug.
Yeah. So I see where you're going. It's a very hard sell. And I would say if you tell me it's my only choice, human instinct is, you're wrong. Oh, no. Human instinct is you're not giving me a choice, right? Whereas if you say your choice is you can advertise or run email campaigns or pay to get in front of these customers yourself, or you can join the directory and we'll put you in front of the customers and you don't have to do anything. Now they have a choice, right?
I was not advocating telling them they were wrong.
Yeah.
So in a
I
sense,
think very much the realization that she may be.
Yeah, yeah, no,
For
absolutely.
sure, she is the premier product.
And even if it is, I usually take that off the table, just because of humans' natural instinct that we are rebels.
It's nice of you to, it's good to know that when you're selling something.
Yeah.
It's likely their own alternative.
It is. It's good for you to know, and then it's good for you to couch it to them like it's their choice.
in a sense, that is like a longer-term strategy of it is building a network. So then
Yeah.
I sort of have that connection
Yeah.
to make things happen within the
Yep.
community.
I love
not
that
the first.
piece. Yep,
That's not the first sale.
right. I love the piece of the interconnectedness of the community, that this is a community tool. People will buy community.
Especially if they're members.
Yeah. Yes.
And I don't know if this is kind of an aside or similar, but that for maybe for some of the value to some of the newer maybe entrants into this market is that to be associated in the same directory with more well-known local businesses.
Yes.
I think it's kind of what it
Yeah.
put it in another way, that like if
Yep.
no one knows who you are, but people know the other people on that list,
Association.
you look better by association.
Absolutely.
It really is I mean, I know there's different apps coming out that are trying to be equal, that are referral sources, where it's like you gotta do this, that, and the other, and they're sort of complicated.
Yeah.
This is more of like a low-level referral source, because like if you're an acupuncturist, but all these people are always talking to their customers, like, oh, have you tried this, or you should go there, and consumers are looking for that referral. So what I'm also hoping is like, you're a healthy restaurant, and someone's like, oh, I need a massage, then they say, oh, go on to
Yeah.
the Soul app, and they have great massages.
Yep.
It's an easy way to refer.
So that's this piece right here. People who are using your app, on your app, promoting your app because they love it. That's a huge, huge piece. That's what you're trying to get. You're trying to get people from I just learned about you to I am telling everyone that I know to go here. And if this experience is good and they don't get lost along the way and tripped up in a loop and someone forgets to call them back and then what you deliver isn't what you told them, as long as this is a smooth roadway, you can create this advocacy, which is the huge driver for next phase of growth. This is your lowest cost of customer acquisition.
Because that avoids the lead generation and sales conversion route, and they come right back into the little, they come into the hand, right?
Well, they actually will come in here. They still have to come in and buy. Yeah. But they've already been educated, and they've been educated by an unbiased third-party reference, right? So their education didn't come by someone you're paying, which automatically makes it more trustworthy. Yeah. So this how, real quick, is really important because lots of companies get tripped up by marketing says, we have this great thing. And people come in and they're like, great, I want that great thing. And then sales says, well, you know, that thing isn't exactly that thing, it's really this thing. Like, well, I wanted that thing. Well, because I'm paid on commission, will you buy it if I sell you this, that thing? Yeah, sure. I mean, that sounds good and this sounds good. So yeah, sure, I'll buy a this, that thing. It sounds great. Good salespeople will do this. Now your company's in a position where they have to sell a this, that thing, and you might not even sell things. You might sell widgets, right? But your marketing and your sales department are so out of alignment that your customer coming down this path almost got derailed several times, and now your company has this huge expense of delivering something that is not even what your business is. This happens all the time. How many people know this happens? How many of you have experienced this happening? It is amazing that it happens, and it does. But this how you deliver is really important because if you don't know how you're going to deliver it, how can you tell the customer what to expect? If you can't set the customer expectations right here, you're never going to achieve advocacy because this is all about exceeding their expectations. I came to you, you gave me what I wanted, you delivered it exactly how you said, and it delivered all the value you promised, and I love you, and I'm telling everybody about you, right? So play with this roadmap real quick. I'm gonna buzz through a couple of slides here and then jump in with questions. So there's 127 different things that occur along that roadmap, and everyone's going to tell you you got to do them all. You need a website, you need a blog, you need to be on the podcast, you need to do an email campaign, you need to get a lead list, you need to start calling people, you need to do direct mail, and then you need to have salespeople, and then you need to have good contracts, and then you need to have 3 different packages for them to buy, and this list goes on and on and on. And us entrepreneurs can literally be spinning in a circle like, yeah, I mean, WTF, what do I do, right? So the point is to focus your resources on the things that your customer is going to engage with you on first. After the buying, then you can go to these other things. I mean, I'm a classic case. I should have a great website. It's been in development for like 9 months. My customers aren't buying from me because I have a great website. I've learned. I thought I need one. Everyone who's in my sphere of influence says I need one. You know what? There's so many people buying to solve the I can't sell problem that no one actually cares what my website looks like. I do. It drives me crazy. But don't spend money on your own ego. You know, spend money where customers are buying. And then when you have enough money, you'll be able to hire the people that you need to take on those projects that you don't have time to do. And my website's got to get done this year. I'm going to go crazy. All right. So I want to talk about caring for the cost of customer acquisition because a lot of times, and I'm going to go again to tech companies or brick and mortar types of companies, we spend a lot of money to get those things set up. You know, we spend a lot of money to fill our store, to get the building, to build the technology. Any of those businesses that have a high upfront cost, we spend a lot of money on. And sometimes we don't have enough money then to acquire the customers. Unfortunately, that means this money was wasted. If you can't acquire the customers, don't spend the money here, right? So the other piece that I try to work with companies on is, let's look at, when you are solving the problem, what are you building? What's the offering? Then we're going to switch to put on our customer focused hat. How does a customer want to go through this roadmap to buy from us? Then we're going to also be aware of what are the financial outcomes required for us to scale that. So when we're first starting off, all of us entrepreneurs have a lot of one-off sales. We've built something, I sold it to you, you like it, great, I sold it to someone else. It's not a repeatable process. It's not a repeatable process until someone else can do it, right? So we have to look this far in advance to make sure that everything we've done here and here creates enough money that we can invest back in our business to create a repeatable process. So you have this exercise and you can go through it on your own. I'll try to move through this quickly, but I'll make myself available if you guys have any questions. But when you're building the offering, think about what are the cost factors for what your product is to get it to the people who are buying it. So you've got the cost of the good or service, right? You've got the cost of delivery, the cost of packaging, the cost of service, right? All those things that are required to get your offering into the hands of the people that need it, right? Oh, there's an extra $sign in there. I'll have to talk to Jessica about that. That one got away. And then we've got the price of the offering. I asked people to put it here because we're going to find out real soon whether or not that's a good enough price. Dale talked to you about price. He talked to you about margin. When you're first starting off, it is really hard to determine what level of margin you need for your business operations. So a lot of the things that he was talking about, I talk with customers about all the time. But when we're just starting off, I need to freaking make a sale to pay my bill. You know, it's like I don't need to make sure that I've got enough margin, right? No, don't do that. You've got to have enough margin in what you've sold and what it costs you to sell it or to deliver it in order to pay for customer acquisition. This has to pay for all of those ways that you marketed and sold, your website, your engagement forms, your cold calling labor, your email writing labor, your branding, all those things that are costs of acquiring the customer. Just what your marketing, sales, and service process are. Yes.
That seems to be a difficult number to figure out, especially if you have an IT company where you have a website build, but you have no idea how many customers you might have. So if you say your website costs you $1 million and you don't put down the price of the offering, but $1 million is not per person, right? But
Nope.
without having some way to figure out a user base, how do you come up with that price of offering?
Are they buying the website itself?
No.
No.
But that's your cost of goods sold, right?
That is well, what business is this?
Say it's a website that's going to attract users.
Okay, then that goes in your cost of acquiring customers. So all of your sales, your margin here has to cover your cost of acquiring customers. So you need to know.
So you don't include an upfront cost like the build of a website into this equation, correct?
Not here yet, but all of you are going to come back and increase your price when you get done. Right here, you're going to talk about your prices. I went out to the market, I talked to people, they're small business owners, right, of yoga studios. They don't have a lot of money, so I'm going to sell this directory for $100 a month, right? Okay. So then if I come back here into cost factors, well, I've got to build the website that engages them. I have to,
So the website build is on your cost factor.
right, as the cost of sale in this particular case, because it's how you're engaging with them. It is part of your sales process. Now, I would not include the cost of a website here if you're atomic revenue. Because
So you're not drawing in your customers that way.
Right. Well,
Table
the,
stakes, it's an
yeah.
ante.
the website for me is validation of the brand, right? But it's not part of my customer acquisition the way my business currently stands. If I want it to be, the upgrade for that to occur would go in here.
So if you do not believe your website is maybe more of a product, but not necessarily, you don't actually need a product. You can go to market without your product, right? In that scenario.
Yeah. There are a number of, now I don't recommend getting too far ahead of yourself, but I have a number of clients where I've recommended that they go to market prior to having their product done.
That has been my life so far.
Yeah. However, you have to make sure that when they're buying it, when it comes time to deliver it, that it exists so that you can deliver it with all of the glory that you've promised.
You start off with that, and you're like, I want to buy 1 million bananas, and you're like, I got it. And you're like, I know nothing about that.
Exactly.
Today.
Yes.
I'm trapped in that limbo right now. But one of the concepts they talk about is the people who went over the MVP and
Yeah.
the product. I guess I don't know how you would make that determination. Where you go, well, it seems to do what I think it's going to do, and you know, just kind of like
Yeah.
shove it up the rocks into
Or
the
does
water.
it do what the customer wants?
Well,
You have to talk to the customer.
Yeah.
to the customer, okay.
So sometimes you might need to acquire some beta customers, right?
Small audience. So
Yeah, yep. Small audience, people who agree to use the product and give you feedback for being able to receive its value for a discounted price. But if you are not upfront with people and you do what a lot of companies do, which is say, you know, for a limited time, you can get this for 20 cents on the dollar, then people are just like, oh, it's not worth anything, right? So you have to make sure that you sell it for the value that it's worth and people are convinced of the value that it delivers, and then you can create agreement to the
that's where it
beta.
gets dicey, because I hear it both ways. Oh, get them in for cheap, and then free beta, and then for jack the price later.
And see, I'm not a fan of jacking around with prices.
Right, you just give it to them and say,
Yeah, I tell them that, look, you know, this is going to be the beta for this time period. After that time period, we're going to change, you know, change prices. Right now, this is the price we're looking at. But for you agreeing to tell me, and this isn't true of every business, so don't say this applies to everybody, right? But in the case of a lot of technologies, it is that I need someone to try it, to tell me, to give me the feedback back so I can make it a little better and then go out and sell it on the market for the price that will actually cover my costs. And so you have to do the full sales effort. But you know what else I'll tell you? Is all of you who are creating products and services, you need to be the first person to sell it, no matter how much you don't want to sell it. And people might disagree, but I have run into so many customers that because they got that first customer feedback, they were hands-on, on the ground with their customers. Those first times their customers bought, it allowed them to create the right training materials, the right things to allow other people to sell. It allows you to control all the kinks that you're going to run into in the process, because you're going to run into a lot. And so if you are the owner, you have full control of that. If someone else is holding the customer's hand, you're now 1 degree of separation from the person who you need that information, right? So just be really careful about that, because you're not going to get the same information if you're getting it from someone else versus if you got it from the customer yourself. Yeah. Sorry, don't care. Mom said it was awesome. Get 2 people you don't know. Yes.
So for my example, I would, in this one, I would not necessarily have a cost of goods sold, because I'm paying for the labor and I'm paying for the developer to create the directory. But there's really no like cost of goods sold for each person. If I acquire 10 people or 1 person, it's still my same
Yeah.
sort of cost.
So there is a storage cost. Yeah. But I will also tell you, I have another client that has a health-related directory. And they have a very high labor cost to facilitate people who are not very tech savvy getting set up in the directory. It was not anticipated. They have to host them in. And if you're thinking that you're a yoga instructor and you're going to be able to go to the website and know what size logo to upload and what description to be and all that to set up, you need to look at that hosting charge, that service charge of ushering them into your directory. Because I would argue that your market might not be tech savvy enough to complete that process on its own. So,
There's definitely onboarding tools that can assist with that.
yeah,
There's IT platforms.
yeah. So there are other costs, associated with that could be associated with the offering for you. It's just that until you get into it, you're really not going to know what those are yet. And that's another reason why you as the owner, being very involved in those first customer acquisitions, you're going to be able to figure out what's the cost of acquiring the customer and what's the cost of the actual product itself. In your case, the directory itself, I would put in the cost of the product, right? So you need to know how many customers does it take, at what subscription rate, at what duration of time for me to get paid back for the amount of cost I've invested in building this directory. That's kind of one of your first numbers to know. So then we go into measuring the outcomes. So we talked about this here, acquiring the customers. We're going to look at, create a list of all the things that go into that, right? So if your website is not the directory, but the other part of the website where you're receiving the leads, that part would go into the cost of sale, because that part of your website and the CRM on the back end of it and the people who write the email campaigns and all of that is part of this cost here. The number that I always ask people to get in customer acquisition is cost per lead. And most people are looking at cost per sale, which yes, you want to know what your total cost of sale is. But it's much harder to get the cost per sale individualized for each customer for these examples that we're talking about right now, right? The cost is spread out across several customers. However, it's much easier to figure out what the cost per lead is. I spent $100, I got 10 leads, my cost per lead is $10 a lead. So you know that in every product that you sell, you've got the $10 that it costs to acquire that lead, plus $10 it costs to acquire all the leads that didn't buy, right? If you can figure out what that cost per lead is, that's a number that you want to control. You push down the cost per lead.
You have to just know in some situations, right? Like Groupon, it was, that's a little sticky.
Yeah.
You don't want to devalue yourself, but at the same time, I have an exact cost per lead because I don't spend anything when I did a Groupon.
Yeah.
And I got so many leads that way, I just know what I lost by
Yep.
doing it.
Cost per lead. Yep. And those people are buying, right? I mean, that's a direct transaction process.
Oh yeah, it's been great. Like
that's
something for like a wellness business, the Groupon.
Yeah. So if we look at measuring the outcomes, we want to look at the total projected revenue for selling the number of items that we have to sell at the price we're offering it, the total cost of what those products are, the projected total sales costs, and if we take total revenue minus the costs of our offering, minus the costs of what it costs us to sell, we get our contribution margin. This is what you have to pay all your other bills, like your salary, right? We haven't paid that yet. That hasn't come out. You have to pay your rent, your phone, your taxes, all these people that you have to pay come out of this bucket right here. This is why once we go through this number and this process, when we get to here, you come back and you're like, shoot, I got to charge more money, right? I can't pay any bills here. I have to eat ramen forever.
Fancy kind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, we're looking person bought the leads, they bought $100 worth of leads or 10 leads, and you sent out a lead. If you bought 10 leads and only took them $10, does that make your cost per lead more?
No, that makes your cost per sale. Your cost per lead is leads before they're converted.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's still the $10.
Yeah. And the reason why I look at cost per lead, I'm still looking at total cost of sales, but if I'm tracking the cost per lead, two things. One, I'm going to be really incentivized to not waste all those fluffy marketing dollars up front on all those things that people are telling you have to buy. Because if I'm controlling my cost per lead, I'm going to be much more conservative about those upfront dollars. And no one here looks too familiar. So one of the big things that we talked about in our How to Fail Your St. Louis startup, which was delivered a couple years ago to like 2 sellout crowds, like standing room only, How to Fail Your St. Louis startup, the biggest thing was that people thought that because I built this great solution to your problem and now I spent my money to tell you about it, you're gonna buy. And it just doesn't happen that way. People don't buy because you built something that solves their problem. They don't trust you yet. They don't believe they can consume it. It's not packaged right. It's not priced right. You know, there's a number of reasons why knowing that you can do it. So that's why the cost per lead is really important. The number of people who come into your, the number of people who come through this door. This is where I see the most fluff money spent. And people think if I get more people in the door, I'm going to sell more. So you want to control cost per lead, because the reality is if leads are coming in the door and they're not buying, you need to invest here, right? So this is the area that for a lot of companies is broken, and people will say, I need to just hire a better salesperson. I clearly can't sell, right? I would argue that despite your natural skills and ability to sell, no one is going to be more passionate about the solution that you're providing to your audience than you are. No one is going to know the level of detail about the value of what you are bringing to your consumer more than you. And that is much more powerful than the personality of this sales piece right here.
And it's what Dale said, he got fewer leads ultimately, but higher revenues because he was able to get the right people.
Yep.
Please turn off your phones.
So if you control this cost per lead, and I do it with a number of businesses in a number of industries, when we set up our budget, it's about driving down the cost per lead.
Can we go through the next two in
Yes.
10 minutes? So
Yes.
we have a little bit.
So we talked about the price of customer acquisition and how that fits into your model. I want to talk real quickly about the operations of customer acquisition. You guys have a sheet about this. This one does not have giant black question marks on it. We're not going to talk too much about this because you're going to need to think about it a little bit more. But the point of the operations is that operations unite people, process, and data around your business, which is the purpose is to make money, I hope. If it's not, then we're probably not, I'm not in the right room. So if the purpose of your business is to make money, the operations of it are the right people, the right process, and the right data to be able to scale that, right? So you create, so if we say, okay, I need to add a person for marketing so that I can do my campaign process that we talked about earlier, so that I can find out how many people I'm talking to actually will buy from me. They'll say, yes, you're solving my problem. We need to, it addresses all three of these. If you change your process, you have to retrain your people and you have to change your data. If you change your people, you're going to have to teach them your process and track the data for them, right? So this is the key thing that we work on teaching customers, is prioritizing customer acquisition decisions. Most of the time when we have limited resources, you have a choice. I can spend money on this or I can spend money on this, right? This is how we would decide what are the pros and cons of each. What are the requirements and the restraints of each? And what's the cost and the return of each? So you can think of any scenario. My graphic designer says she wishes that she had this when she was trying to buy a house. I mean, it just really doesn't matter what it is. You can apply this model to anything. Once you do it a couple of times, it'll be like second nature. You'll just think this way to be able to say, am I going to spend my money here or there? We do it when we go out to restaurants, right? Am I going to go to this restaurant? It's farther away, but it's less expensive. Am I going to go to this restaurant, right? So when you're thinking about that customer acquisition, think about that model of making decisions. Because if you have a limited amount of dollars to spend, choose them wisely. So once we have down this model for one of our products and services and people are buying and we're making money, we can do two things. One is we can scale this, right? We now have a defined process of how to guide customers through our system. If we don't like this piece, we can now outsource it. We've already defined what's here. We can hire someone else to do it. We're making money. We can hire. If this piece is something way outside our skill set, we now know our customers, why they're buying and how to deliver it. We can spend money up here and have someone else do this for us. So once you have this figured out, then you can scale the process and the operations. The other piece is you can add on as many as you want to. So this is one product, the Health and Wellness Directory. Maybe then we want to add on an email campaign component that will send emails to all of our users about you. You can pay extra for that. Maybe then we want to add on, we'll do social media blasts on your behalf to the market, right? And all these extra things that people can buy from you, the extra products and services that need to be marketed and sold, right? That's an example where you're marketing and selling to all the same people, but if you're a tech company, you might have this product that's for doctors and a separate product that consumers buy. Wildly different markets. If you go after both of those at the same time, you're going to run out of money because neither one is buying and you're going to spend a ton of money to be in front of both markets. So pick which one you want to do this for first. And once that one's working and putting money back in, you can go to the next one. Oh, and I guess that's it. We made it.